Okay, so module number 2 is this week we're diving into purpose. What is your purpose for your office? What is your purpose as a leader in your community? What is your purpose as a dentist, as a doctor, and how do you want to be seen? And so we're going to go over all of the different takeaways, but the big takeaway for this week is, so last week, or last module, we talked about authenticity as a key driver and really how to build your authentic truth, who you are as a person, who you are as a core, okay? This week, your biggest takeaway is building your emotional toolkit. What is that emotional toolkit? We are going to get to that today. But also building an emotional toolkit for your office, a master emotional toolkit. And docs, this will be fantastic for you to implement because of a couple of different reasons, okay? We know that sometimes the hardest part in retaining talent or retaining employees or retaining team members is the internal conflicts that can arise. And in such small offices, and now I've been consulting for not just dental offices, but small businesses, Fortune companies, and CEOs from around the globe, just around emotional confidence. And anywhere from big to small companies, we all struggle with some of the same concepts. And that is making sure your team is happy, making sure that there is a solid foundation so that they can tap into themselves, okay? And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to show you by just you focusing on you this week and building that emotional toolkit. So, and lastly, repetition is everything, okay? So what I mean by repetition, the key characteristic for this week is drive. Okay, so are you committed to creating a morning routine that you can practice incorporating some of the elements in your emotional toolkit so that you can start each and every single day at your highest level? Meaning that in every single interaction, every single business meeting, every single meeting with patients, whether or not things fall apart, but can you bring to the table your highest self? Well, we know we're human and we know things fall apart and we know some days are better than others. But what if we made a conscious choice? What if we made a conscious effort that from all of those things that you created in the previous model, we can select maybe 3 to 5 things that you can incorporate in a daily routine. Now you're saying, well, my day starts so early, I don't even know if I can incorporate this. This is silly. Well, this is going to make a lot more sense as we go along. But if you think about it, some of the greatest leaders of our time, some of the greatest philosophers, the greatest thinkers, even our presidents, the big thing that they had in common, and really in discovery of this emotional grit, how to grow, reveal, innovate, and transform, the one thing that they all had in common was this thread of a morning routine. Being able to fill your cup up first so that it can outflow and outpour onto others, right? And if you can take this a step further, and when we travel and we're on planes, what does it say? Okay, oxygen mask drops, be sure to cover your mouth first before you help others, right? So it's the same thing for yourself. How can we actually give from an empty cup? And when we're giving from an empty cup, you see what happens when we wake up late, or when we have an emergency patient that calls in the middle of the night and you have to get up. You know, you're cranky, or maybe you didn't have enough sleep because you have a child at home that was suffering from a nightmare. Whatever the scenario is, we can go on and on, okay? What does that do to you? What does that do to your psyche? How does that affect you? And you may think, well, It may or may not have an effect, but truly, when we're tired and when we're depleted, quite honestly, how good is that root canal going to really be? Okay? How good is that filling going to really be when your staff has been working all day without a break, running amok? Okay? How can you actually even be present with your patients? Okay? How can you even close on other treatment with your patients if at the end of the day your patient is asking you about new veneers that they potentially want to have? You're missing some of those opportunities because you failed to fill your cup up first. And so what I'm going to show you now is ways in order to do that and why this emotional toolkit is really important so that you can begin to use this as a master toolkit for your office, for your team. So that when you do have days like that, the team can also fill their cup. And all it takes is a few different things. And so what I mean by emotional toolkit, in the last section, you talked about, or you discovered 10 to 15 to 50 to 60 things that you love about yourself. So from that list, I want you to select about 5 to 10 things that if you can incorporate in your day as one of your essential cards or one of your essential tools that you can pull from, that can instantaneously change your emotional state and lift you up even when you are running on E. What I mean by this is, let's start on this morning routine. So for instance, in my world, movement is a huge factor. I cannot start my day without any sort of movement. I love to dance, and dancing has been a big part of my life growing up. But simply, is it Tai Chi? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? Is it running up and down the stairs? Is it doing high kicks? Figure out what that looks like for you. We know that from a physiological standpoint, the fastest way to engage endorphins in our bodies, okay, is exercise. And so how can you move the lymph in your body so that you can actually change your emotional state? And there have been tons of research on this, obviously. But more importantly, after movement, what else can you do? Is it feeding yourself proper nutrition? Okay, having an amazing meal, or for me, it's I love my cup of chai and I have to have that every single day. Or when I'm feeling lousy, a cup of green tea is really all I need. So what does that look like for you? So movement is an example. Being able to indulge in perhaps something that keeps you comforted. Maybe it's a cup of coffee, or maybe it's making your own breakfast in the morning. What does that look like? Journaling, okay? Many of us spend time writing out, thinking, contemplating, planning your day. And there's so many different ways in order to do that. For me, it is journaling. And it is spending the time being grateful, even if I only have a few minutes. And maybe it's, the top 3 things, my 3 big wins that I had the previous day. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more so that you can incorporate this with your dental teams. But just like you have a morning huddle, you should have a morning routine for yourself. Okay? We have morning huddles with our patients, with our teams to start the day. This morning routine is really about you. One of the other things that I love to incorporate in a morning routine is really the ability to practice gratitude, prayer, meditation. Maybe for some of you it's singing in the shower. Maybe for some of you it's dancing like nobody's watching or dancing like nobody's caring. Or maybe it's listening to your favorite music. I encourage you to find out and create a playlist of top jams that you can tune into when you're driving to the office to get you in that state, to get you in what we call a peak state a peak emotional state. And this you can carry into the offices as you're starting your day, as you're starting out your week, as you're starting your monthly meetings. And if you don't have a monthly meeting, I encourage you to do that. It's going to be very, very important as you begin to utilize this repetition, not in your own life, but not only in your own life, but also for your team members. So the repetition of your emotional toolkit, okay? So creating your emotional toolkit, I'm gonna give you some time this week to think about what certain things that you can incorporate. Now, for me, it's movement, it's meditation, it's practicing gratitude, writing in my journal, listening to music, reading something inspiring every single day. And for those of you who are addicted to the news, well, what does the news do? You know, we feel bad about what's going on in the world. We feel bad about, you know, the current state of affairs, and which is why I got rid of all of the TVs in the office for two reasons. One, if it's constantly on and there's all of this fear-based bad news that's coming through the tube and into my operatory, guess what's going to happen to the emotional state and well-being of my patients? Well, are they going to want to get anything done? Are they going to want to have conversations about how they can elevate themselves, whether it's veneers, whether it's their implant that they've been putting off for a very long time and they can barely chew, so they're figuring things out on the other side, but then there's all this decay that's manifesting or happening as a result on the other side, okay? So if you can pick up on this thought process, it's really changing the thought patterns. And if we are using positive psychology in order to affect the behaviors that occur within our operatory, okay, or within our own lives, think of how much more that we can serve as a result and how it can actually affect our bottom line as a result. And I can't tell you, when we started only utilizing positive psychology as far as TED Talks and informational documentaries for our patients, it transcended our practice and increased our bottom line at least another 20% within the next year that we started this practice. And this is the actual tools that I'm sharing with you that I now give to all of my consulting clients, whether it's in the dental world or elsewhere, because it's creating this experience for how you want patients to serve. And now, for some of you, you may think, well, I work in a PPO office, or you might have not taken insurance. Well, quite honestly, you can still create this environment and train your team members effectively so that you are adding more value to the patients that come into your life. And it's not just from the service that you provide, but maybe it's the foods that you have in the office. I know a lot of dentists, especially pediatric dentists, who have candy and chocolate in their office. I know for a while we had vegan treats when I first became vegan. You know, that's just a little glimpse. I also had green tea. So for us in our practice, it was very important to be able to provide patients with proper decisions that they can make in their own life, because we were showcasing all these different documentaries about the foods that we put in our bodies and how that can affect our dental health, right? For instance, the sugar documentary that was that became very big. It totally affected the lives of our patients and the practice, but also in the way that we were communicating to them, which then resulted in them making better decisions and them wanting to elevate the type of treatment that they were getting. And so I hope that this is a journey that you're following, because if you are able to affect your own personal world by making better decisions, just by educating and being more aware of your own emotions, you then make better decisions as a result. Number two, you are able to provide at your highest level because your cup is full. And then by repetition, you are able to affect other patients and your team members and create so much more value as a result. and you deserve this. And you can do this with ease, without all of the necessary stress, simply because you are taking care of yourself. And that concludes our Module 2.